Not using chapstick. We're going to reapply this Nomad gloss from the Fête de Provence collection. And this is Miel. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But in English, it means honey. So it's a golden color. So I just sat here and did another look. I didn't do a tutorial because I wasn't sure how much work it was going to be. And yeah. So I primed my eye with the Fenty eyeshadow primer. And then I went in with, on this eye as a base, we used this shade again. This eye as a base, we used this dark green right here. And then we topped this, because we didn't use this in the previous look, we put this all over the lid. So this shade that looks like is green, this is what it looks like over this green shade. And for this eye, we went back to this one. This is the only smooth topper in here, and that's just on the inner corner right here. And the rest of the lid, we have this because I wanted to use that some more. And so it looks the same over the different bases. This one I was afraid for my eyeballs because it is a full-grown adult chunky monkey. And I did, for the first time, after I put down the matte shades, for the first time I used the Pat McGrath Artistry wand. So I'm like, let me see what that's about. And then I tried to go in with this brush because it is very dense with this shade here, and it just didn't want to pick up or put down, and it was just putting down just a few flakes. And so I said, you know what, let me go back to the sponge tip applicators, and that's how I applied the rest. And doing it that way, I only have a few flakes, and swiping the sponge tip applicator in it, if there were chunks on the sponge tip, I would tap it off. So this here, I'm really scared for my eyeballs with that one. This one does seem to be the most chunky in here. This one is the most smooth. And so I'm not... this isn't a palette for me. And yes, I do like these looks, even though the base is different. One is a gray, one is a green. Putting this on top, it looks the same. That's not an issue, because at least you know what this is going to look like over a base. Maybe try it over a white base, over the red, see what happens. Also, after I laid down this on the lid and this one on this lid, I went in with this shade here to blend out. And then I did the toppers and went back with this shade and did a little more blending. This eye, I added some more of the green on the outer corner and took that a little bit up into the transition again. Well, this top line right here. And the same with this one. I took that and put some more in the outer corner and put a little bit more up here. And so I did put more... I added more steps into this look because I really wanted to do this palette justice. And I feel like I have this shade somewhere in another palette, this shimmer blue. And I know I have a gray in my other Nomad palettes. I know I have a red, maybe not this exact tone, but in maybe the Hudson Valley palette. I know that we have a green somewhere in Nomad. The white does not show up. I mean, it blends a little bit, but it's not a shade. And I also took that down here. And so it does not make me look ashy though, which is good, but it's kind of like, why are you here? You know what I mean? What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go through my Nomad palettes and pull out where I think there's a red, a gray, a matte green. I know none of them, I don't think any of them have a matte white, but just looking at how the shimmers, the toppers, excuse me, show up, I have those colors in other palettes, even if not in Nomad palettes. And so I'm like, why use this for me? This is just me, and I'm not an artistic person when it comes to makeup. So I don't, and you've seen my videos, if you've seen them, I don't do all the fancy stuff and the wings and the double wings and the graphic looks. Like, this is just what I do. I just put shades on, blend it best I can, and call it a day. So in that sense, I'm simple and easy with makeup. Even if I put 5 shades on my lid, when you look at it, it looks like a simple look, and it doesn't take me a lot of work. Working with these toppers, it's a lot of work, and needing to use the sponge tip applicator because they're so small, it takes me a long time. And I do like how both of these look, and I am glad that I did put more time and more technique and effort into these looks, because I did want to really give this palette a fair shot. I really did. After meeting with Smiley Shani for dinner and working at the Playhouse, I did get more compliments on the eye, on both eyes. Some people say, I love both of your eyeshadow looks. And some people would say, I like the pink, but I like the blue because it brings out your eye color. And so people like the look, I like the look, but it was just not my vibe. Especially the pink one was not my vibe. But I wanted to use, as my goal always is, every shade in the palette. And knowing that these are toppers, they needed to go on top of something. What are they going to go on top of? There's only 4 mattes in here, and one doesn't show up. And I'm wondering how some of these toppers would look over this, even though it's not a shade. And having said that, I'm not going to try that. And so, me not being artistically creative with makeup, I don't have a lot of options with what to do with this unless I just do an all matte look and put one of the toppers on the inner corner. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm going to pull out real quick where I think we have the mattes within the Nomad palettes. And it's not a bad palette. You just have to be artistically creative. You have to really like toppers. You have to like the chunky shades. You have to not mind either using a sponge tip and taking longer, or using your finger, or wetting your brush. This one, the same as this and this one, I did have to keep swirling the sponge tip applicator in it just to break through whatever that is. And all of them, all the shimmers do look hard pan, but I think that's just the texture of the shadows. And it was just a lot of work for me. For those who do all the fancy stuff, this may be really easy for them. But for me, it's just a bit too much work. And I'm afraid for my eyeballs. If one of these chunky monkeys fall into my eyeballs, it is not going to be good. And so I don't think I'm going to be reaching for this palette. I am thankful for receiving it in PR. I am thankful for being able to try it and to use it. I doubt I would have purchased it myself, but I am glad for the experience. And I did try to do it justice, and I do like both of these looks, which look the same even though they're over different bases. And I even did a little bit more with the liner, did a little bit more underneath the lower lash line. So yeah, I'm going to pull out some Nomad palettes and we'll just see what is what. And so, but what you heard so far is my first impressions of this palette, probably my final impressions of this palette, because, and I know I keep saying it, the toppers are just a lot of work for me, and I have these shades in less work and shimmers. And so, but if you really like the shimmer shine, and you don't mind putting in the work, like if you're a Pat McGrath person and you don't mind the chunky monkey shimmer shines, you will really love this palette. Like, you will be like, what's the big deal? You know, I deal with this all the time with Pat. But for someone like me who doesn't like chunky monkeys, yeah. And speaking of Pat, the artistry wand, it went on nice. I didn't touch it after I put it on to see how tacky it was or anything. And I was really wanting to see, was that going to help this stick? But I think because it's just so chunky that it just did not want to stick to it. But this is something I will use. My eyes are not feeling heavy or itchy or anything like that. For those of you who are new, I have sensitive skin, and a lot of things do irritate my skin and my eyelids and all of that. But I did not have a problem with this, and so I will continue to use it. And it was actually nice being able to put this on top of the matte shadows that I put down without disturbing those matte shadows. And also, the color of those shadows did not pick up on the artistry wand. Let's get back to this because this is what it's about. It's not about patting this video. I'll be right back with some possible dupes for how not only these two shimmers look, well actually it's this one. This one is just on the inner corner here, and how these two and this one looked earlier. We're going to start with this red shade right here, and what I'm going to show you first, my palettes are everywhere and I'm hoping I don't drop anything. The first thing I'm going to show you is this red in Hudson. It is not the same tone. This one right here, it is not the same tone, but if you're going to top it, is it going to look similar? And that's something I thought about earlier, was when I laid down that matte, I'm thinking, I have that shade. And even topping it with this, it was reminiscent of the look I did earlier. So that's it for Hudson, except for one of these greens, maybe this one. So you kind of have this red in here, and you kind of have this green in Hudson Valley. Orient Express, we have a red. Marrakesh, we have a red. The red in Marrakesh is softer in tone than the one in Santa's Village. Santa's Village is very vibrant, and topping it with this shade would be reminiscent of one of the toppers that we did on the look earlier today. If you have Haunted Europe and you lay down this red and then top it with one of the shimmers, well, one of the toppers I used earlier in the look, I think you would have the same look. Looking at Iceland Fire and Ice, even though this is not this red, when I topped the red in Santa's Village, I do think you can get a similar look as just using this shade by itself. And maybe even something similar, just using this shade over here to give you something a little similar to this one. Or layering this over maybe this matte shade here, just to deepen it up to see if it would be something like this. Or, now that I'm looking at it, taking this blue and topping it with this. Looking at Mount Verde Cloud Forest, this green down here, the green in Santa's Village is deeper, but is it really that far off? And I kind of think it may be, because Mount Verde Cloud Forest is a vibrant palette, whereas this green in Santa's Village is a deeper tone. But if you're going to top something with the green from Cloud Forest, will it give you something similar to what I'm wearing right now? I kind of doubt it, because there's not anything really blue in here. All the shimmers in here are green based, except maybe this one. But it's not going to give you this blue look though. You see what I'm saying? Looking at Whistler Snow Lodge, I do think this shade here would give you this look. Even if you wanted to just use it on its own, or lay this down first and then top it with that, I think you would get something similar as this. And whereas this is more of a bone color and doesn't seem to show up on anybody I've seen use it so far, this one is a dual chrome, and this is great for just an inner corner highlight if you want to have an inner corner highlight. And also, looking at those two greens, they're not the same, but will they look similar? Sorry for that light on your lid. The last one I'm going to show you is Fête de Provence, and I'm thinking about one of the looks that I did. It reminded me of when I laid the red down and then I topped it with two of the toppers in here. It reminded me of a look that I did with this, where I put these two down and I topped it with this shade. I think it was close. And so what I'm saying with all of this, looking at the different shades and thinking about how the looks looked with Santa's Village, if you have those Nomad palettes, or if you just have those shades in other palettes, if you just really like these toppers, purchase the singles if they're selling them in singles. You know what I'm saying? Because I really feel like I have these three mattes. This one, no, because this is a bone shade. And actually, I do have this in a palette because I have a couple shades that don't show up on me, but they are great for blending out other shadows. And so I actually do have this too. But even just amongst Nomad, we've seen the green, the gray, the red. The only thing we haven't seen were these dual chrome shimmers. But when you layer the shades you already have, the red, the gray, the green, with one of these toppers, is it going to look like something you can already do with what you have in your collection? So that is the question. And that question came to my mind because as I was looking at the pictures that I took from earlier, I kept thinking, I've done this before. You know what I mean? And so if you don't have those Nomad palettes I showed you, and you don't mind chunky monkeys, and you do enjoy using topper shades, don't mind using your finger or taking forever with a sponge tip applicator, then yes, by all means, if this is still available, go ahead and get it. But if you have those Nomad palettes, or if you're thinking now about other palettes you have and you have these mattes, just get the toppers if you want them, or just dig further into your collection to see if you can do similar looks with what you have. And this is only $29, and so it's not a huge investment if you want to get it. And even if you have these mattes and you can do a similar look with toppers you have, if you just want it all in a nice cute little 9-pan palette, by all means purchase it. But if you don't mind going through your different palettes and picking out the shades to do the looks you want to, and not having to deal with chunky monkeys. Well, this one's not a chunky monkey. And you'd rather just use just smooth shimmers or smooth dual chromes, then I would say not to get this. And so this was my first impressions, final impressions, recommendations, wrapped up into one, just based on the looks that I've done. And it's only been 4, but these two look the same because it showed up the same over the different matte colors in this palette. And also, if that's something you're considering doing, oh, one day I'll lay this down and top it with this, and then I'll lay this down, top it with that, it's going to look the same. So that, excuse me, so that's something to think about too. And even earlier, when I did first half one lid, second half the other lid, it blended into the same shade. It looked like the same shade. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you for watching. I do hope this was helpful if you're thinking of getting it, or help you just with ideas if you do have it, or confirm for you that it's not for you, or confirmed for you that it is for you. So either way, let me know your thoughts below. Yeah, and we're going to end this here, and thank you for watching.